and welcome to another edition of Trail Talk TV. Today we have Bob from BidSwitch in the office. Bob is the GM of BidSwitch, and Bob, basically, BidSwitch has become a very important piece of the exchange infrastructure. So basically, I'd like to introduce yourself first, and we'll talk a bit about BidSwitch and what it does and how it's happened in the industry.
Sure, yeah. I started at BidSwitch at the beginning of the year in January. Prior to that, I was the head of product at Programmatic, and I built an emerging media business. Now jumped into BidSwitch to kind of help scale it up and grow it. The opportunities just explosive at this point. We're seeing a ton of great traction in the business.
So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of supply and a lot of demand, points of interaction in this sort of exchange ecosystem. And integrations is obviously a huge pain point for a lot of people, particularly the waiting time and the cost. So BidSwitch has come in and sort of solved that problem, but it's become a bigger entity. So let's sort of map out exactly what pain issues you're solving and how you address that.
Yeah, so BidSwitch, I think the market has matured to a state where BidSwitch is absolutely a requirement.
Yeah.
Now, it's not a nice to have, but I think the DSPs and SSPs both need this as a solution in the market, as a kind of a neutral central entity that allows enhances the capability of trading. So there's three really key value propositions to key off of for BidSwitch, and there's a bunch of other values that it adds and has opportunities to do a lot more. But just staying focused on the three core value props. One would be the initial issue that we have today is maintaining your connections.
Yeah.
So if you have a SSP, DSP. Every time they want to be able to trade, they have to do a connection, right?
Yeah.
This takes 2 to 4 weeks. Is that 2?
Yeah. In terms of the
and
integration,
just to do the integration
yeah.
initially, and then DSP will connect to somewhere between 20 to 30 different SSPs to be able to trade at scale. So that's 2 to 4 weeks for every integration just to start. And then from there, the SSP will update their API twice a year, and that's another 2 to 4 weeks of maintenance every time for that. And so DSPs have a major challenge from a resourcing standpoint and prioritization of where they want to spend their resources and effort and energy to build their business and grow their business. Yeah. So the one challenge is number one is connecting and growing your business and just adding more SSPs. 2 is maintaining those connections. And 3, from the DSP side of it, is actually listening to all the bid stream.
Yeah.
So we have a technology called Smart Switch, which actually dynamically narrows that bid stream, and it's doing it in an intelligent way. So it's looking at what the DSP is buying and using that as an indicator to what to send more to that DSP of the same types of those bids.
So, I mean, the DSP, obviously, to listen to a lot of bids, it's a huge expense for a small bespoke bidder. I mean, obviously, the enterprise players like the media mats can have the funding and have the growth to listen to a lot of the bid stream, but smaller players who have built their own technology, the cost must be enormous.
There's a massive inefficiency for the big guys and the small guys.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly the big buyers can listen to as much volume as they need to. They can afford it, but at the same time, they want to run an efficient business. They still are thinking about their costs and overhead and infrastructure costs, which is where Smart Switch adds a lot of value.
Yeah.
So, what BidSwitch has done is instead of having
sorry, take the place card. That's fine.
So instead of having to do all these one-to-one connections, we've done is enable the DSPs and SSPs to be able to connect to a one-to-many connection.
Yeah.
So BidSwitch essentially takes all the APIs from the SSPs, we normalize it. So even though OpenRGB is supposed to be standard and everyone abides by that exact standard, it's not exactly standard. There's still different nomenclature being used in different formats and custom components to it. So what BidSwitch does is maps that to a common API, so that the DSP can then just connect in once and access every SSP that we're connected to. We have over 60 different SSPs connected today. We're adding about 1 a week at this point.
Really?
And we have north of 100 different buyers on the platform. So if you take this 2 to 4 weeks for a single integration, and then you start thinking about just the maintenance cost. Forget the first time, let's just say that's a sunk cost the first time you do an integration. the real pain is all year long when you're updating those connections.
Yeah.
So 2 to 4 weeks times 30 connections, it turns into somewhere between 120 weeks to 360 weeks worth of engineering effort to be able to put that in. Now, 52 weeks a year, that means you're at 2 to 7 different engineers
just
all year long, just in managing.
Rather not building product,
not building product and not adding new connections.
Yeah.
It's just maintaining current connections.
And I guess the explosion of bespoke bidders and supply means that this is only going to get bigger in terms of like the integration issues, like particularly around video and mobile and display.
Yeah, so this covers mobile, video, desktop. We work across all screens at this point in mediums. We've added in native as well. So native is a great example of that update, right? So a lot of the new SSPs are updating all of their APIs to incorporate native, the 2.3 OpenRTB spec.
Yeah.
And then they have to convince all the DSPs to update them, so they have to enable trading and allow for there to be scale inside of native. Mm-hmm. So if you go to a DSP and you say, look, here's 5 different SSPs that now have native capabilities, 2 to 4 weeks times 5, you're back into more than a quarter's worth of work to be able to get just five connections updated. We can change that to 4 to 8 weeks for all year long, or 2 weeks they can be up to date for all 5 of those connections.
And you manage all those integrations and the updates.
Yeah, so
from the system itself.
Our whole focus is to constantly stay up to date with the SSP APIs, and then update our spec, and then we release our spec twice a year, so that the DSPs only have to do 2 updates a year to cover all 60 suppliers on our platform.
Yeah. And it's also interesting as well from a global perspective in terms of a localized inventory. So let's say smaller markets like Turkey or Asian countries, you kind of can let that supply get into the system as well.
Right. So if the DSP is prioritizing where they're going to spend most of their money, they're going to look at the largest SSPs in the market and pick the top 20, right? After that, the SSPs in the smaller regional markets, they all have to get the attention of the DSP to get that connection.
That's true.
And so what we can do is we can keep adding SSPs. The DSP only has to go into our UI and just flip a switch, literally, and within 15 minutes they're trading and connected to that supplier. So we get DSPs all the time sending us lists of suppliers they want to connect to, and we go out, work with those suppliers, connect them into the system, and enable them to be able to trade with some of the largest, smallest, medium, and every size DSP with all the different values.
Yeah. And in terms of sort of looking forward, I mean, you're obviously onboarding a lot of different channels, the native. In terms of how you develop the product, is there an opportunity that this ecosystem will have other third parties plugging in terms of technology? I mean, is that something you look at potentially, or is that?
Yeah, so I think today we're solving those 3 values really quickly,
which are pretty big problems for the
maintenance
industry,
connections and expansion model into new regions, and also narrowing the bid stream through Smart Switch. The next opportunities for this are we're going to stay as a neutral entity, right? We're not running an auction. I think that's an important thing to understand.
You're not running an auction at all.
We're not running an auction at all. If the bid qualifies for the DSP based on their filters, then we send it as many responses back as the SSP can handle. But so there's no auction. It's a neutral system. We're never going to be an SSP. We're never going to be a DSP. But I think there is an opportunity to add, like you said, a third party vendor marketplace.
Yeah.
So if this is a single point of integration, then we should potentially have the ability to integrate DSPs and fraud capabilities. Viewability capabilities, cross-device databases, all those are
a necessary part of the ecosystem.
They're another prioritization the DSP has to make a trade-off against as to when they integrate, even wants to do the deal. With this, you could go into the dashboard, check off what you want, check the terms, you're off and running.
And in terms of sort of how you work, is this sort of a clearinghouse as well? I mean, like, how do you work? I mean, some of these DSPs and SSPs are so kind of disparate and far apart. How does the transactional part work?
So number one, the DSP, we consider the DSP the client.
Yeah.
So they're paying for the service essentially. Yeah. And there's 2 different ways they can operate with us. So some DSPs want to have a direct connect relationship with the SSP.
Yeah.
So we have a component we have a way to trade with us called Connect Mode.
Yeah.
Which Connect Mode allows you to have the business terms with the SSP and the billing relationship with the SSP. And we're nothing more than that connection point. So you can still have that direct relationship, but leverage all the efficiencies of the system. Yeah. The other component is called media mode, where some of the smaller DSPs or smaller SPs that don't, they don't have the account management resources to maintain and connect with everybody.
Yeah.
They'll use media mode, where essentially we're taking the billing risks and
Yeah.
managing
Yeah.
the collections from the buyers,
Yeah.
and then paying the sellers.
So clearing infrastructure effectively. For
Yeah,
these models.
exactly. So we've got to maintain accurate credit risk on those guys and make sure that they're able to pay bills and those types of things. But all that assessment's done, and we facilitate that connection. So we make sure that the ecosystem's also flowing and moving very quickly, so that you take it from these guys on time.
Yeah.
On time payments are being rewarded, and then paying the suppliers on time as well.
And so what are we going to see from you guys in terms of like other channels coming on board this year? Or is it where are we going to see the growth? Or
I mean, I think this year there's still, we have 100 buyers, but the reality is there's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to continue to really stay laser focused on scaling and getting the core, better and better, stronger, faster integrations. Make sure we're updated. I think next year is where we'll start looking at new innovative courses.
Of course.
The opportunity at that point, once we're at scale, is to be able to kind of expand into new areas. So I think there's an opportunity inside of the de-risking the marketplace and managing that cash flow more efficiently.
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity in the third-party vendor marketplace.
Yeah.
I also think in Programmatic Direct there's an opportunity as well.
I mean that seems to be a big growth area potentially for the industry too.
Yeah, Programmatic Direct is an opportunity, I think, because the SSPs are now releasing APIs for Programmatic Direct.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of create a big board solution inside the market
Yeah.
where the buyers can actually just API in.
Yeah.
So again, that single connection point.
Yes.
And API in, see all the different packages and opportunities and deals for
Yeah.
guaranteed buys or private market buys. Today, this works with private marketplace. We're automatically passing the deal IDs through.
Yeah.
But the next step to that will be the guaranteed deals and just facilitating, the discovery of those deals. We're not going to jump into the workflow of it. We'll just be more of the API connections between the two systems.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a very, very important part of the infrastructure of the exchange ecosystem going forward. So.
Yeah, it's going to allow the market to move faster.
Yeah.
SSPs can update their APIs faster, then new innovations can hit the market faster. If you can redeploy your resources elsewhere and focus on other things besides connections, that's a major benefit. So there's a lot of potential with this business. I think those are just some of the things that we're thinking about.
All right, Bob, thanks for the deep dive on BidSwitch, and we look forward to seeing the rollout on the other channels and the third-party integrations coming forward. So thanks, Bob.
Thanks very much.
And that was Try to Talk TV, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.